Long-time Doctor Who fans often tout the early Tom Baker era as the Golden Age.
You say so.
Under producer Philip Hinchcliffe, the show enjoyed a higher viewership not seen since the days of Dalek Mania in the 60s. This was not only in large part due to the most inspired casting of Baker, but also because these stories rocked.
Perfect.
At first glance, these stories borrow a lot of inspiration from classic sci-fi and horror tales. Script editor Robert Holmes ensured that when these stories were made for Doctor Who, they would inhibit the wit, the charm, and above all else, be memorable TV for millions of families watching on Saturday nights.
To hold in my hand a capsule that contained such power. To know that life and death on such a scale was my choice. To know that the tiny pressure on my thumb, enough to break the glass, would end everything. Yes, I would do it. That power would set me up above the gods. And through the Daleks, I shall have that power!
Some say it started at the very beginning of Tom's time.
As for the ears, well, I'm not too sure. Tell me, quite frankly, what do you say to the ears?
Alas, as stated in my video for Robot, that story wasn't really an indicator of what would follow in the era. It was a safe retread of familiar ground, but I still enjoyed it for what it was.
Press a kettle well.
It was the swan song of producer Barry Letts and script editor Terence Dix. Those two ensured that Doctor Who would strive to move forward in the era of colour TV.
You underestimate me, Doctor.
The combination of Hinchcliffe and Holmes took things one step further. It was for the best. This is obviously bias, but the golden era begins as soon as they are in charge with the Ark in space. This doesn't necessarily imply something new. We already had a story about an Ark. It was crap. We had bugs literally 2 stories ago.
All praise to the Great One!
Yet, the Ark in space manages to encapsulate me every time I sit down to watch it. I'm pleased to confirm, even after my most recent rewatch, this is one of my favourites, and it should not be underestimated.
You underestimate me, Doctor.
In this, the Doctor, Sarah and Harry land on Space Station Nerva. Part 1 is brilliant television. It establishes the setting of the space station thanks to a brilliant set design of the curved corridors and white chambers by Roger Murray Leach. 3 main characters get to interact a lot, creating some classic moments like this.
Yes, you know, the sort of thing they shove in lifeboats and things.
You're improving, Harry.
Am I really?
Yes, your mind is beginning to work. It's entirely due to my influence, of course. You mustn't take any credit.
The station houses a computer, which places Sarah in cryogenic sleep, creating a dilemma for the Doctor almost immediately. High stakes indeed. There are other people on board cryogenically frozen. There's something about this first part which makes me feel the isolation that the main characters feel, along with the frozen guest characters, who make the story louder once part 2 comes around. After they awake, one by one, we learn that Vira, Noah, Rogan, Lysette and Libri, among the rest of the station's, or Ark's still dormant inhabitants, have overslept by just a few millennia. The reason for this was because an insectoid creature tampered with the station's computers. Pretty standard stuff when it comes to sci-fi. As flippant as part 1's cliffhanger is, with that carcass, it was clever in design to warn the viewer that there were bigger dangers to be faced for the rest of this. Paranoia ensues when Noah notices a missing crewmate. Of course, in typical annoying Doctor Who fashion, guess who gets blamed?
If you'd been down there with me, Noah, you...
The There are so many other stories which this is tiresome. However, here it works, as Noah is a dickhead anyway. He later touches green goo, and the Doctor realises that the missing crew member had eggs planted inside him by the alien insect, thus becoming one of them. Noah's fate is sealed when he reveals his hand is covered with fucking bubble wrap. Yeah, let's be clear, a few of the effects in this have aged badly. The arc in space, shot at the beginning, looks shit. The laser and lightning effects suck. The fully formed adult insect creatures look fake by today's standards. But for 1975, the latter at least may have looked ahead of its time. The second half of the arc in space is where we get a lot of the defining action moments, with the Doctor having to work a lot of shit out. He even uses reverse psychology on Sarah.
Oh, stop whining, girl. You're useless.
Oh, Doctor! Oh, wait!
You've done marvelously, Sarah. I'm very proud of you. I really am very proud of you.
I feel like the threat here is far more serious due to the urgency portrayed by the characters, particularly the Doctor. There's still the odd hallmark quirks which this incarnation possesses, which suggest a confidence. The Doctor has lived for what he believes is around 750 years at this point, so surely he is the wisest person here, even wiser than the Ark's passengers, who despite existing for thousands of years, haven't really lived through it. I have a theory that the Doctor, despite dealing with many deadly situations before this, is showing a front. Deep down, he's got to be afraid, right? After all, that was one of the arcs which led to the third Doctor's death.
I had to face my fear, Sarah.
The insectoids and even Noah during his transformation are horrible to look at, despite qualms with the special effects by modern standards. Robert Holmes' ambition of creating a story including horror elements, thus producing formidable opponents, is why the arc in space shines. But I digress. We learn that the insect race are the Wirren, while undergoing a bodily as well as mental transformation. Noah gives context as to why the Wirren were pissed with the humans in the first place. The reason being, they were driven from their home by human settlers. Now they want to absorb all human knowledge, and now they want to destroy them. Hence why Noah's life as a human is basically over. Imagine living your normal life one day before you end up turning into one of these things. Although I can't defend Noah for touching that green goo. Before long, the Ark ends up being invaded by more Wirren forces, as the Doctor and co are defiant in protecting the sleeping crew members. The last part is an action-packed climax. The exceptional set design is expanded upon with the introduction of the transport ship, which is a crucial plot device used to save the day. With Noah seemingly metamorphosized into the leader of the Wirren army, all hope seems lost, echoing the earlier stages of the story, which conveyed the sense of loss and isolation on board the Ark, with everyone asleep. Artificial intelligence has gone wrong. Sarah ends up going missing for a bit, leaving the Doctor and Harry as our only vocal points by the end of part 1. Indeed, by part 4, the story is more vocal, more urgent due to the looming Wirren threat, but that sense of dread for the human race, now a migrated civilization, is subtly present for the rest of this horror adventure, which can easily be mistaken for just another Base Under Siege script. The ending does not mess around. The TARDIS team agree to travel back down to Earth to repair a receiver terminal, allowing the Ark's inhabitants to repopulate their home planet. It's brief, but it provides hope and inspiration. It also keeps the viewer invested for the next story involving raw potatoes. To me, the Ark in Space is a perfect example of this era of Doctor Who. Other examples are Pyramids of Mars, The Brain of Morbius, The Deadly Assassin, The Robots of Death, The Talons of Wengxiang, and Did You Really Think I'd Forget Genesis of the Daleks? All offer something so evocative of the gothic horror genre. For many years, I only appreciated the Ark in Space as a very good space opera with great characters, villains, iconic shots, and a usual strong script from Robert Holmes.
Homo Sapiens. What an inventive, invincible species. It's only a few million years since they crawled up out of the mud and learned to walk. Puny, defenseless bipeds. They've survived flood, famine, and plague. They've survived cosmic wars and holocausts. Now, here they are, out among the stars, waiting to begin a new life, ready to outsit eternity. They're indomitable. Indomitable.
It's only now, in adulthood, how much I realise just how much of sci-fi's afterward success, let alone Doctor Who's, is owed to this one story. It is entirely possible that elements from Ridley Scott's masterpiece film Alien are borrowed from this very story. The empty space vessel, cryogenically frozen passengers, the alien laying eggs inside a human, and body horror. Was Ridley Scott inspired by this? Even in 2023, Doctor Who revisited the idea of a dormant space vessel, which on first impression was abandoned. Yes, there's been many other stories done between, but While Blue Yonder is a prime example of Doctor Who made for the 2020s. As much as I love how that story can stand on its own 2 feet, I can imagine that Russell T Davies must have taken inspiration from the Ark in Space. After all, he has gone on record to say it is his personal favourite Doctor Who story. Incredibly, Stephen Moffat, best known for his horror elements with people transforming into gas mask zombie and having victims eaten alive inside spacesuits, also cited the Ark in Space as his favourite Doctor Who story. Aesthetically, the best setting which comes to my mind from a Moffat story is World Enough and Time. It's very bleak, much like the fate of humanity in this. Of all the stories to choose from, with a vast library of excellent television which is still getting discovered from generation to generation by new viewers, the fact that the Ark in Space is the favourite story of 2 of Doctor Who's creative figureheads for the early 21st century speaks volumes. You may disagree with their opinion,
You underestimate me.
but this is one you must check out. Through the many stories those writers have done for New Who, I'd like to think they were inspired by this story's brilliance. It's Tom Baker's second story as the 4th Doctor, yet it feels like he's been the Doctor for years. Sarah Jane and Harry have plenty of good material. The latter ends up feeling like a spare part in other stories, which is sad because Ian Marter played that part well. He must have enjoyed doing this though. He did write the Target novel. When asked about what his own favourite story was, Tom Baker chose this one.
I remember being asked that before. I do remember enjoying particularly the designs, I think in a story called The Ark in Space.
When even the Tom Baker himself lauded the genius of Holmes's work under the brilliance of Hinchcliffe's production, what you have here is an undisputed classic, which to this very day can still inspire writers, directors, actors, set designers, and I guess me. Because this is a video I have wanted to make for quite some time.
Remember the wind and the sun, the fields, the blue sky. That's Earth, Noah. It's for the human race. Don't abandon it.
The subtle nods to the Bible with the Ark inhabiting humans and Wirren having a character called Noah, the implication that something went wrong on Earth long ago, leading to the predicaments the crew members find themselves in, parallels the Great Flood depicted in Genesis. No, not the one with the Daleks.
You will be punished for this!
Fundamentally, I think the Ark in Space is about overcoming hardships of the past, the fear represented by the Wirren. But in the end, just like Noah's Ark, there is the possibility of a new beginning, giving characters like Vira hope. Obvious similarities between the Bible and this are apparent due to the naming of the Ark and having Noah. Some may consider it a bit too cliche. For Holmes to go one step further and repurpose the themes from that book of Genesis for this sci-fi show in the year 1975 is genius. There is a reason why many consider Robert Holmes to be the best writer in Doctor Who history. It could be a sheer coincidence, But for a bleak story, Holmes ends up writing something inspiring. The Ark in Space inspired audiences to keep on watching during the Tom Baker era, ensuring more would tune in their millions, including adult viewers. This, for me, was the one which established who this Doctor really is, how he interacts with his friends, with strangers, with his enemies, and gave a further showcase into what he was capable of. He electrocutes those poor Wirren. This story has left such an impacting legacy. It began a golden era for the show. Millions of fans love it. 2 of the show's prominent writers call it their favourite. The idea that the film Alien was inspired by this is mind-blowing. Finally, The Ark in Space inspires me. For this one story, I have written nearly 2,000 words before I get around to editing this thing. There's so much more I want to say. I implore those who haven't seen this to go and watch it right now. Tom Baker's effortless charm as a definitive Doctor, along with memorable villains and a bleak realisation of civilization in the far future, makes this one I want to constantly revisit. It's a dystopian future, which is my kind of Doctor Who story. This is a contender for my top 10 Doctor Who stories of all time. Its escapism inspires me to write about its brilliance, and also makes me want to write other things. Something original. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is, I want to write a sci-fi novel.